Hey guys, this is Amanda Rouse. Thank you for joining the Manduhmay Podcast. This is episode 2, and today we're going to be talking about how to get started into modeling, and also, do you have what it takes to be a model? I don't know. We gonna find out together. Okay. So in today's episode, I really want to stress doing your research. If you're trying to get into modeling, depending on the degree of, how much you're trying to have it be in your life, it's a business. And unless you're doing it for fun as a hobby, you really ought to know the business, at least to an extent, right? So doing your research, I think, is very important. Even some of the stuff I'm saying, this is personal experience. So if I'm saying, I would never do this, or watch out for that, or all this stuff, some of the stuff I'm saying could be my personal experience based on, the agencies I've come across, models I've come across, but for you, it might be totally different. You might sign with the agency that requires you to spend $2,000. I don't recommend that. It doesn't make sense to me. We can go into that in greater detail in another episode. It actually really irks me. It actually, it's sad. It's a whole thing. Well, it's a whole episode, okay? But for you might sign with this agency and you pay $2,000 and you have to take all these classes, and you might get booked a lot. They might use you a lot, and it might be a really good experience for you. I'm gonna say that's not normal, and be wary, be watchful, because that's okay. Whole nother episode. Yeah, can you tell? It just upsets me a little bit. Okay, so do your research first and foremost. Okay, so how to start modeling? Oh my gosh, that is a great question. So what I recommend, again, do your research, but I would just look into what type of modeling can you do realistically. So what I mean by that is, if you are 5'0" and you want to be a runway model and do Fashion Week, that's probably not a realistic goal, especially if you're wanting to do it as a career. That's not really realistic. Agencies will not be sending you out if you are 5'0". However, if you don't necessarily want to do it as a career, you want to do it for fun, there's a lot of shows throughout, and I'm speaking more of the US, but there's a lot of shows everywhere, actually. There's shows I know of in London that'll take shorter girls. And also ultimately it really depends on the designer, but for the most part, if a production company or, if casting is kind of booking the models, agencies are sending the models out, it's going to be those, if you're a girl, 5'9" to 5'10", 5'11". And then for the men, it's going to be more 6', 6'3" is kind of that range for runway. I just really recommend you again, do your research. If you are trying to be a athletic model, then you probably need a little bit of athleticism. For the men especially, you're going to want to have your abs. You're going to want to be toned at the least, if not built to a certain aspect, to be able to do that kind of modeling. Yeah, I'm kind of on the fine line of that, is I'm I'm skinny enough, I feel like. I work out just enough that I'm toned. It looks like I have a little bit more muscle than I actually do, which is great if I want to do that. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily consider myself to be a fitness model, because I just don't have the abs and the build and all of that stuff for that. So that's not really something I'm personally pursuing. Okay, once you go over what you can realistically do as a model, then you want to go into what type of modeling do you want to do. So again, this goes back to, okay, if you want to do runway, that's great. You can be 5'0", you could be 6 foot, whatever it is. It really just depends, again, if you're trying to make it a career or if you want to do it for fun or as a hobby. So, but I recommend, if you're trying to do it as a career, be realistic. To a point. Opportunities will always come. You could be 5 foot and you could blow up on Instagram, and your agency could send you out more of it as an influencer than a fashion model. You can do a lot. Listen, the world is your oyster in this day and age. It doesn't necessarily depend on size as much, skin tone as much, skin type, all of that stuff, gender, all of that. There's a lot of different factors nowadays. Back in my day, it was a little bit different. But I would just say be realistic in what you want to do based on what you can do, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? If you guys have questions, please feel free to ask me so I can like clarify, because maybe I'm saying things that make sense in my head and you guys are like, what the heck is she talking about? And if you guys want to know more, I can do like specific talks on that. And I would love to bring in somebody to talk with them and talk about their experience, because I only have one point of view or other people's stories, but I'd love to bring someone else in to tell their story. Okay, so once you've figured out what type of modeling you can realistically do, what type of modeling you want to do, then I say let's get down to that point where you really want to make that decision. Okay, is this going to be a hobby? Is this going to be a career? If it's going to be a hobby, I would say, honestly, if it's going to be a hobby or a career, I would say start taking photos. Be a little bit choosy. If it's a hobby, like, who cares? But especially if you're trying to make it a career, young girls and guys, or older people as well, if you're interested, I would say, especially when you're younger, you just have maybe not the best, what word choice am I looking for? Decision-making skills? Don't just shoot with anybody. Really be selective. And I know that can be hard sometimes, especially if you are in a small town. Be selective, please, because those images are going to be out on the interwebs. And once they're out, they are out forever. Some good advice that my sister gave me when I started out. She said, don't shoot with anybody where you can take a better picture than them of yourself. And I was like, oh man. When I first started out, I was like, dang, that's not very many people. And I don't claim to be a photographer. It's just like once you have a phone and you could take a better selfie and you have figured out lighting, you have figured out your angles, and you're looking at this photographer's page and you're like, ooh, like, do you take better photos on your phone than the photographer would of you? Just don't shoot with them. It's just don't shoot. I would just say don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it, because what are you going to do with those images? You might as well take photos of yourself, use those. Don't shoot with somebody who's going to take worse photos than yourself. I recommend hitting people up on Instagram. Go to modelmayhem.com. There's apps you could use like Newbook. I'm trying to think of others. Just where you can upload photos, and then there's photographers there. Facebook, there's a lot of groups on Facebook. That's great. I definitely recommend, for example, in Idaho, there's like Boise Modeling Collection or something, or there's Idaho models and photographers or whatever. So look up the groups in your area and just start shooting. Just start practicing your posing and all that stuff. Gosh, okay, quick story time. When I started modeling, I shot with a photographer in Idaho. I'm trying to think of what we did. I think I brought like 2 or 3 outfits, or maybe it was like a shirt and like an undershirt I could wear, and then like a jacket. So technically like 3 outfits, but it was like a really easy change. And then I just remember him being like, okay, like unbutton one more. Oh, you know what it was? I did not have an undershirt. It was just like a button up with like some sort of jacket or something. And I believe it was supposed to be just like portraits basically. So why this man, first of all, at the time, I mean, I wasn't that young, but I was like 20, right? Why is this man 30, 40, 50 something, I don't know, older than me? Why are you asking me, okay, unbutton again? Oh, just undo that button. Just put like your shirt over your shoulder. Like, and I'm just like, no, I don't want to do that. And he's like, okay, just unbutton one more time. I'm just like, no, I'll do it like here. Like I did like the second or third, because I was like, okay, I get it. You want to see, like if it's portrait, it depends. Like, you're not necessarily trying to do a portrait here. You want to have, I just like wrap myself in my clothes. You want to have like a little opening, show a little bit of skin. Okay, I get it. A little bit. He's all like, show the shoulder, show more. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's too much. My boyfriend at the time was literally right there, and this guy had the audacity to continue to push me to unbutton more buttons and move my shirt lower and lower and lower. And it was the weirdest. I don't even know if I got any images from that, honestly. And if I did, I probably didn't use any of them. I don't think I got any images off of that. That's so funny. Yeah, that's another thing, ladies, and sometimes gentlemen, is these men will be shooting you and they'll ask you to take your clothes off, to just have your bra, or just take the bra off. They'll say it's artistic, all these things. I have heard so many stories of girls who just never even got those images, or if they did, they're like, oh, I actually looked terrible because they felt uncomfortable. You know what I mean? A lot of the times you just feel so uncomfortable. Like, before you go to a shoot, you should have in place what you're gonna do, and that's it. You don't deviate. It's not like, okay, we're doing a beauty shoot and then all of a sudden I'm naked. What? How did the photographer, oh my goodness, how did this happen? I can't believe it. It's like, bruh, you don't want to ask me to take all my clothes off. What do you mean, how did this happen? You know? So it's not a mistake. A lot of these photographers will use younger girls to get these images for who knows what they're doing with them, because a lot of these girls don't get the images, and if they do, they're like, ooh, like, you don't really want to post them anyway. You just have to be careful. Once you start doing things where you're nude, or once you start doing really like sexy swim stuff, that kind of puts you in a box. There's a lot of brands who won't want to work with you once you have that out there in the world. So again, just be careful. I think for me, I just really held back a lot. I think now I'm a little bit less conservative than I was, which is so funny because I feel like I'm still so conservative with my modeling. But take it easy. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to do every single swim, nude, shoot. Even starting out, if you have an agency and they're really pushing for that, if you aren't comfortable with it, or you don't feel like it's your time, especially if you're younger or you're older and you have kids, or like whatever it is, you're just like, I don't know if I want to do this right now. Wait, you don't have to. You really do not have to do that stuff. So keep all that in mind. We kind of deviated a little bit, but that's fine. Ooh, okay. So we're going to talk about what type of agency you should be with, or you should try to be with. So again, I'm a freelance model. I don't think it's a necessity to be with an agency. I think the pros and cons of being with an agency are: pros, you are able to have somebody who's pitching you for bigger and honestly like better paying jobs than you ever could as a freelance model. I really haven't heard stories of a girl who's not with agency who's booked a really big campaign on her own. It's typically through an agency, and you work with bigger clients and the money is just better. Now here's the thing, I worked for never mind. This is an actor's. We'll get into acting and commercial work. Modeling, no, it doesn't really happen. You have to have some kind of agency, somebody to kind of vouch for you and send you off to these bigger things. Correct me if I'm wrong, you guys. If you have an experience as a model where you've worked with huge brands, done big campaigns without an agency, let me know. Because again, this is my experience, and this is what I've heard and seen with my own little eyeballs and my own little ears. So yeah, there might be a difference with somebody out there, and I would love to know like what that experience was and what it looked like. That'd be very interesting. When you are working jobs, they are able to be there to vouch for you, to help you out. They'll put inside your contract, like you have to eat after so many hours. They're going to put in, this is the rate for this amount of time, and then when it goes over, you get overtime. All of that stuff, they'll make sure you're taken care of. Versus when you are freelance, you have to take care of yourself. You have to plan all that stuff on your own. And a lot of the times, people don't necessarily care if and when you're eating, or if you're out in the freezing cold, or if you're getting the compensation you really should be getting for what you're doing, because, you know, you're just little old you. They don't really care. No one's, like, you may or may not know a lot of contract lingo, so maybe they gave you kind of like a BS contract where it's like really good for them but not so good on you, and so you just have to be really careful about this. Again, research. What else? Yeah, I would just say ultimately agencies are really able to just put you out there and show you to more people, bigger clients, and as a freelance model, you really have to fight and push and like find out different castings and you just have to do a lot of work where your agent is doing a lot of work. They should be doing a lot of work. They should be doing a lot of work. They're not always doing a lot of work, but they should. So having somebody submitting for you and putting you out there and putting you in packets and sending you out to different clients is great. I now am with a new agency, JL Model Management. Julie, you're the best. Heart. I love you. Where she's putting me out and she's sending me out to all these clients. And even still, you guys, I'm I'm looking for work on my own still, because it's important to take charge of your business, of yourself, of your career, hobby or not. Like, just be in control, know what you're doing, understand what's happening around you. Don't just show up like I did when I was younger and you're just like, I'm so happy to be here. And you get screwed over and you don't even know it. And you have lost a lot of money, or you're spending a lot of money because you don't know your worth and what you should get paid. And you're just doing stuff because of the joy of it, which is great. But at the same time, it's a business and these people are out businessing you because you're not businessing. Does that make sense? It's a bit, anyway, it's, well, okay. Now, there are different kinds of agencies. There's bigger agencies where you might have heard of Wilhelmina, Ford, IMG, Elite, agencies like that. They're very big. They got some big clients. They got some big models signed with them. You know, Gigi, Kendall, Naomi. These people are with those bigger agencies. Now, you have agencies in LA, for example. You'll have like Bicoastal, Freedom. I'm trying to think of like NTA. They're smaller agencies. They're more boutique agencies, but they're all still really great depending on what you're looking for and your type and all that stuff. So with these more boutique agencies, even like with mine, and technically I think it's a management, JL model management, right? So the smaller ones, in theory, you are getting seen more, you're being pushed out there more, meaning if they have a roster of 50 people, which I think is very small, but if they have a roster of 50 models, then you are more likely to get picked and sent out than if you were with a bigger agency where they have 500 models. You may not get seen, you may not get sent out at all. And that was actually a fear of mine for the longest time, this thing called being shelved. Being shelved as a model is like terrifying, and I know a lot of people talk about that getting into the industry. Like a lot of girls who've done freelance for so long, that's like the biggest fear, is that you'll sign with the agency, you're really excited, they're excited to work with you, right? They're like, oh, we want to have you. And then you just sit. They never pick you, they never send you out, they never show you in front of clients, and you just never work. And you're on this contract for 2 years, 3 years, and you just aren't working, and you can't work because a lot of the times these sneaky little people, they'll sign you exclusively, meaning you cannot get any work outside of them. What? Yeah, crazy, I know. So that's another thing, depending on what you're trying to do and depending on how much you know about the agency and the research you have done, I recommend being non-exclusive unless you really trust these agents are going to send you out and you've heard good things through other models and you just have a good contract, maybe that it says, you know, if they haven't sent you out in 60 days, then you can, cut off the contract or something like that. So you should always, you as the model should always have a way out, because these agencies always have, like, they can drop you at the drop of a hat. Like, it's easy for them to drop you, but in order for you to drop them, it has to be this huge long thing, and all the times they'll just shelf you and hold you because they want to, and it's really, it's really sad. Like, you just want to pursue this career and you can't. But if you guys have any questions about specifics of what we talked about, because I could talk in detail about any of this, especially with the agencies and the paying $2,000 agencies. Talking about you. Yeah, okay. I'm educating people to know not to sign with you people, okay? Yeah, if y'all want to know certain ones that I know of, hit me up, and I will help you decipher whether or not it's a scammer. Because some of these are scams, and it's quite sad. Quite sad. So I just encourage y'all, do your research. Figure out what kind of modeling you want to do. Figure out what kind of modeling you can do. Whether or not you want to do it as a hobby or as a career, and then look into different kind of agencies, and if it's even worth it, maybe you can get enough work where you live as a freelance model. And so why not just try to do that, and why not learn about your business on your own because the agency is going to kind of tell you what they want you to do with your social media, what they want to do with your hair, with your look, whether or not you're really close to B+ size. They'll be like, well, we want your measurements to go up, we want your measurements to go down, whatever it is. And so I just think you have a lot more control as a freelance model. I think that's the perk of that. Okay, and then our question was whether or not you can be a model. And to that, I will say, yes. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I think it depends, again, on the first couple questions we ask. So what type of modeling can you realistically do? What type of modeling do you want to do? And then, of course, are you wanting to be a freelance model? Are you wanting to do it as a hobby? Are you wanting to be an agency model? What kind of agency are you wanting to get into? It kind of all depends on all that stuff. But heck yeah, try it out. Of course you can be a model. I think some people are born naturally into just being able to take photos, and they look amazing in every angle and every photo they've ever taken. Doesn't matter the lighting, what color they wear, they just look perfect. Riley, I'm talking about you. And then there's other people where it's like, it takes a little bit of practice, it takes a little bit of time, effort, maybe money if you really want to take classes. Okay, that's fine. I don't think that's necessary, but maybe money. I see nothing wrong with classes. I just don't think of it as a necessity to start modeling. But yeah, for sure, you can model, and it really depends on what you want to do. Girls, you're really tall and lanky and gangly, you'd probably be great for editorial or some kind of fashion work. And girls, if you're shorter, you're probably going to be really great for commercial or even parts work. There's so many different kinds of modeling. So there's even hair modeling, you guys. And I know that's not what people really think about when they think of modeling. They think of runway, fashion, editorial. That only makes up maybe like the runway only makes up maybe 3%, 5% of the modeling industry. There's just so many opportunities now. There's also an opportunity to kind of get in the modeling realm through being an influencer, which I was a little bit upset about initially when that happened, where influencers were models, because it's like, bro, you're not a model. Just because you're an influencer does not mean you're a model. But you know what? Now there's a lot of influencers who have become models. I see it. Okay, they're models. But again, not every influencer is a model. Oh, yeah. So another thing is whether or not, depending on your size, height, whether you're a guy or a girl, whether or not modeling can be something you do like full time. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother video. That's a whole nother podcast. That we'll talk about if you guys have questions about it. Oh, I would love to bring somebody in. I'm trying to think of one of my friends who is not like your stereotypical model, who's killing it. I'm going to think on who that might be and bring them in, and then we can talk to them and just figure out their experiences, have them tell their story. And yeah, I think that'd be great. I think it'd be really awesome to learn from them and just hear their experience. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining episode 2 of the Manduhmay Podcast. And I hope you learned a little bit about how to get started into modeling. Again, research. I cannot say enough. Research. Please do your research in whatever you're wanting to do, in whatever agency reaches out to you, in whatever photographer you're trying to shoot with. Do your research. Just know what you're getting into. It's a business, and there's a lot of people who know so much more than you and who can take advantage of you. So, on that note, you guys are awesome. You guys will figure it out. I know. Do your research. If you guys have questions, hit me up. Comment on this, just send me a message on Instagram or something, and ask me those questions. I really don't mind answering. Anytime I have time, I go through my messages and talk to you guys, so definitely feel free to chat. I think modeling, I love it. Everything about it, being hair and makeup and meeting people and working with different designers and just seeing all the creativity from everyone on all sides, lighting and just set design, all of that. I just love it. Again, thank you so much for joining me on the Manduhmay Podcast, and we'll talk soon. Bye.